Iron Fist episode 10, Black Tiger Steals Heart. Once again, we actually have a pretty decent episode. It was funny, going through this episode, honestly, when Danny first got there, I'm like, okay, he wakes up, things are normal, they got him. The whole thing, who are these people, what's going on, are they the Hand? I've had my speculations, maybe they could be a different sector of the Hand, maybe Madame Gao is like her own thing, they are two separate generals. The Hand is a worldwide organization, maybe they do different things. Danny wakes up and he starts going around, and I mentioned this early on. I was like, I forgot to talk about it in the episode it happened, but I'm like, color is an important factor for me. When you have ninjas dressed in all red, I'm like, that is what I'm used to. Then you have them dressed in all black with a hint of red. I'm like, that's different. That's odd. It's not like that big of a time span between Daredevil and Iron Fist, So I'm like, all right. I feel like this isn't really the Hand. Danny wakes up and he starts walking around. I'm like, he better call Peter Parker because my spider senses are going off. Like everybody, like the main two people that are talking to him, and Bakudo and Colleen, just black, red T-shirt. I'm like, this is the Hand. Like he's screwed. Like this is weird. I don't understand why it's working this way, but this has to be the Hand. Like suddenly they're just switching costumes and the color changes up. I'm like, this has got to be the Hand. And of course it's revealed that it is. And Madame Gao is like, you're with the Hand. And so that, for that little second, it brings up the question, like, what the F is really going on? Was she never a part of the Hand and she was just using their name, and because she is just powerful in her own right, they kind of let it go? Or is it because they, kind of everything that happened with Daredevil Season 2, the Hand did kind of leave the city? I won't spoil that for anyone who, is watching them out of order, but it wasn't just like, oh, we got defeated. There were like two separate reasons where they were like, okay, we're done here. And it's like, it kind of makes sense they wouldn't need to be around anymore. They did what they needed to do in those first two seasons. So I'm like, it kind of makes sense that she could use their name and they wouldn't know about it, because they would, it's like, we couldn't possibly care less. We got what we needed, in Daredevil. So who cares if she uses our name to threaten other people? But then it's revealed she is a part of the Hand, but she, as Danny put it, is like, when Colleen's talking to her, it's like, so you're trying to say that she's the bad Hand and you're the good Hand, like she's this rogue element, and the Hand is actually meant to be like this really good thing. And that was interesting. I was like, I know that Danny's effed up, like the whole going crazy and trying to, every time somebody mentions the Hand, he loses his mind. Excuse me. They aren't wrong there, and they, this kind of brought up some really good points with, the dude, Davos. We find out that Davos is how you pronounce it. We find out that that's him, and I was right. I was like, he seems like the way he's dressed, and now he has the mat and stuff, he's from Kunlun. And I was like, but if he's from Kunlun, why did he like F that dude up in the truck? Like they're supposed to be nice and stuff, aren't they? And it brought that up, and I was like, this does make me question some things, because we've seen the indoctrination, but if you watch Daredevil, you know that the Hand is really effed up. Like, whether it's Madame Gao or it's the other Hand where it was Nobu, this seems like a third faction of the Hand that's separate from both of them. And I'm like, I don't know what to ever think. Like, it's the school monastery for the Hand. I don't think that's where Nobu grew up. I mean, especially considering he's actually Japanese. I'm pretty sure that's not where he was, and it seemed like the actual full-on Japanese Hand is very different than whatever Americanized version of the Hand, or in the States at least, not like all of America, but in the States, whatever version they have is totally different. And then Madame Gao has her own version, and if I remember right, Madame Gao also is Chinese. She's not Japanese, like she's actually Chinese. So the Hand is all over the place with ties to both Japan, China, and now the States. And it's like three totally separate factions. Like they all do different stuff. Madame Gao is like the leader of her faction. Nobu, I would consider the leader of like the truest faction of the Hand, because they're ninjas and that's what the Hand is. And then we have this new version with Bakudo, where maybe he started with kind of the purest faction and then he kind of led it into his own thing because he wanted to use the Iron Fist in order to kind of like white things out. So it was just interesting. I was like, man, this is freaking nuts. They're like basically building up multiple organizations within the Hand, and I was just like, I don't know. It's like I kind of want to side with Colleen a little bit, because this is not the Danny Rand I know, and I've said that a bunch of times, where it's like, this dude just keeps losing his effing mind. Same thing with Davos. Like I said, he like beat the dude, inside his own food truck just so he could sit outside and try to find a way to get to Danny. And I'm like, he's like they're like all ninjas. They're like, monk ninjas in Kunlun. He could have found a way to just not beat that guy up. And then he's throwing shuriken at his head, making him piss himself. And it's like, he didn't need to do any of that stuff. And it's like, that right there makes it seem like Kunlun isn't the greatest place ever. Because it makes it seem like these people are indoctrinated, because they certainly are. We saw that during the episode, the kind of the Game of Death one. And I'm just like, yeah, Colleen kind of has a point. It's like, you're kind of under mind control. Like, you lose it every time someone mentions the hand, because it was just beat into you this one, particular type of story. And that's not exactly what it's like. Although, as a viewer, I have seen what that's like, and like, I've definitely seen the hand lose their effing minds and try to kill a buttload of people, and cascade down a hospital and kill a bunch of people. So it's like, there are definitely two sides to this story where everybody's looking crazy to me, because Danny's real crazy, but then Colleen seems cool, and Bakudo does a little bit, but they are a part of this organization that we know is really bad. So it's just crazy to be like, they both have really good points, because I've seen the hand go crazy, and I've seen Danny get nuts, because it's definitely indoctrination as the Iron Fist. So it was just really crazy watching it. I'm like, this is the type of stuff that I think is good for this show. And so I think this is actually a decent episode, and all those speculations I had kind of, fully came to light, and I thought it was cool. I thought that was really good. What they did with, the Meachums and stuff, that was pretty interesting. For the most part, nothing, pretty much in general, there's nothing with Ward. It was like he was referenced, but that was pretty much it. So we have Joy and Harold kind of teaming up together to get back on the board, and it was pretty crazy. We have, Harold come in, and he's making his scheme. He's like, honey, don't worry about the blackmail stuff. Just leave that behind, no risk. And he goes in, and it's just like, all right. He got Bakudo working with him now, and Bakudo wants a totally different thing than Gao. They're all the hand, but they do their own thing. Whatever, apparently. So he's like, you'll find that I'm much more lenient than Madame Gao. She kind of does it through fear. I want a partnership. So he wants him to go back into the public light, and they're trying to kind of build that up. And we still don't know the 100% truth behind what Bakudo really wants from Danny. But, it's like, hey, he wants Harold kind of back in the public figure. So Harold goes to the office, and he kills Lawrence. He kills him, and they do it as a suicide. Technically, he didn't lie to Joy when she said, did you have him killed? He didn't. He did it himself, so he technically told the truth. But she ends up being reinstated on the board, as well as her brother and Danny. And I was surprised that the woman brought that up, because I'm like, I get bringing back Joy and Ward, but Danny, I was like, I know he did like the good thing for the press, but I was still admittedly surprised that the lady mentioned, I guess we should reinstate Danny as well. So I was like, oh, I'm kind of surprised by that, if I'm totally honest. But all three of them are now back on the board, so we'll see how that plays out once Danny actually finds his way back to the city. But excuse me, it was just pretty intense. It was a pretty intense episode. He learns the truth that he's with the hand, and Madame Gao was just real weird and cryptic. She was like, I offered you the chance to live whatever life you wanted, which I felt like I must have missed that part. I don't remember her doing anything cool than being like, you can do whatever you want in life. I really don't remember her being that cool. She made it seem like she was just the greatest, giving him the greatest offers ever, and I'm like, I just don't seem to recall her doing anything cool to him. So they're both trapped by this new faction of the hand, and now Colleen can't really be trusted. Danny and Davos break out. They have the fight scene. Once again, like I said, I've gone stale on the action. I don't really care. It was decent. It wasn't too bad. It was a lot of jumping, and once again it was dark, so that they could put in the stunt double stuff. It didn't bother me too much. It was a fairly okay fight scene, but it was a lot of jumping around, and I felt the action that they were cutting from wasn't that crazy, that they could have let the scenes go a little longer. They had another tight hallway space shot. I thought that was pretty decent. It was just punches and kicks. It was nothing really crazy about it, but I thought that was fine. When they fight all the young students and stuff, and they just whooping everybody to pieces, that was something. We do see Colleen take off at the end of the episode as well. She decides that she will end up helping Danny and Davos to escape. So they take off, and she ends up leaving as well because she helped them escape, and she probably would have been killed. Don't know what to expect. When Bakudo was talking to, I want to say the guy's name was Will, and we find out that that was the scholarship, was him like joining the hand, and I don't know what he meant. It seems super ominous. So I was like, all right. I mean, he kind of touted him up a little. It was like, you did exactly what I asked. You tried your best. And he was like, get him fixed up. This young man is our future. And I'm like, that just makes me think they're gonna do some weird Marvel experiments on him. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm a little worried for him. Like, he was happy and stuff, but I'm like, I'm not too happy for what they may or may not do to this character now. But Colleen is taking off, so we'll see how that plays out in the next episode. We do get a really cool look at an actual Iron Fist, which was awesome. They had like the old costume, and it wasn't the same colors. It was kind of like with Daredevil's outfit, where it was all black in the original thing. It was kind of like that, but it was awesome. And also, and this is, I didn't think they would actually show this, but he had both his fists lit up. And I was kind of avoiding referencing that because I was like, they might do that in season 2, so I didn't want to mention that he could do it in both hands eventually. But they showed it in this, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't think they were going to show that he could actually get the Iron Fist in both hands if he was powerful enough. And they showed this dude like just whooping on people, and he was doing flips and kicks and stuff. And that was a cool fight. And their way around it was, of course, making it like super old, black and white footage where they're going behind trees and it's like popping in and out. So it's like, that's an easy way for them to do it, which I thought was weird. I was like, this dude is flipping and flying. Like, that could have easily been the stunt double. Well, maybe that's probably why they did it that way, because, maybe he still had like the beard and stuff. I wasn't really paying attention. But that's probably why, because he still had the same look, of course, as, I can't remember the actual actor's name. All I can remember is Finn. So I don't want to just keep calling him that. But, maybe that's why they had to do it that way. Because I'm like, they could have just had this as like a steady shot. Or just did the thing where they like zoom in and then eventually it just becomes a color shot. Because I was like, the action in that was really sweet. He was flipping and flying and punching dudes and kicking and stuff. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is what, every fight scene I really want to be. And it was cool because he was like, they're kind of fighting in a cool different location in the trees and stuff. So that was sweet. But we got to see kind of a reference to the original costume, so that was nice. And plus the fact that both his fists were lit up, I was like, that's cool. Because like I said, I knew that could happen, but that was like one spoiler I was avoiding mentioning, because like, oh, he can do it in both hands too, because I'm assuming we won't see that in this season, but I could be wrong, because that's a big thing with his character, where that comes like later on, at least the version I saw where I watch the character progress. He didn't have it for a super long time. He only had it with the one hand. And then it was like after, this was like in the recent Spider-Man cartoon, initially it was like Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and he was going by Power Man, and White Tiger. They were all teamed up with Spider-Man. It was like a four-man team with all of them. And Nova was in there too. I think he joined later. So it was like a 5-man team. And Iron Fist started off where he just had the one fist, and then after like 3 seasons or something, he did like some more training, and he went somewhere and learned a new, he kind of upped his abilities, and he could do the Iron Fist in both hands. And I was like, oh, that's cool, because I'd never known that at that point. So it was cool to see that in this episode, and they kind of referenced that it's something Danny can do in the future. I don't know if we'll see that this season. I assume we won't. He can barely do it. And I didn't mention this before, but that's another thing that's kind of been bugging me. Every time somebody asks him to do it, it's like, I can't. Before it made sense, like the first time it was like, he mentioned the drugs, and then every other time he's just like upset, and it's like, sometimes he's not even that upset. It's like, it's been like, 15 minutes since the last fight where he couldn't do it, or where he just did it, and then when he's talking to someone, he's just like, I can't do it. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. He's not drugged up. He's not in the middle of the fight. He's just talking with this person now. Like, I forgot who he was talking to. I think it was Joy. And it was a normal conversation. It wasn't like he was depressed or anything. It was a normal conversation. And then he was just like, I can't show you. I'm just like, well, that didn't make sense. But, every once in a while it happens. And he couldn't do it in this episode either because of his hatred and stuff like that. Because he's effing nuts. He has like zero control over his power, so we hardly even get to see it. But like I said, that's why I've kind of just been like, the action is going to be what it is. I don't really care anymore. The story elements are what have to get me. And so far, last 2 episodes, I mean, it's going towards the season finale, so it kind of, I like to think it's going to be some good stuff. But this was really good. It was like, stuff that I guessed, and I'm like, visuals and things like that. I'm like, alright, the black and the red with the hand. It's this weird whole school thing, but it's like kind of a school, kind of a monastery. Like that in itself just was some weird stuff. So there's some things there, and I like the way it all kind of played together. And then we have the fact that Harold is moving plans ahead to get back into the public light somehow, saying, "Hey, I'm alive again." So it's just interesting how things are playing out so far, and I actually enjoyed this episode. So I think it was a good one. I'm looking forward to the next one because every time it's a good episode, I look forward to the next one. And these last two, I actually enjoyed. So the revelations, the story elements have actually been pretty good. I like to hope that the next one will be good too because I am curious what's going to happen with Danny and Davos and how Davos wants Danny to go back home. Like that's the reason he came to get him. And Danny's like, I gotta save these people. Like I'm not doing my thing as I'm supposed to as Iron Fist. I kind of want to do my own thing. So we'll see how that plays out. Where they take things, but I'm looking forward to the next episode. We haven't gotten the full-on flashback episode, so it's got to be coming up real soon, unless they completely avoid that, which I'm starting to think they might, because they spend so much time. It didn't bug me before, but now I kind of just wish we get the full flashback episode, because we get so much time where it's like, yeah, I did this in the past, and he constantly talks about how he learned this thing in the past, and it's been like it's almost like every other episode or a couple episodes in a row he'll talk about what he learned, and we just haven't seen anything. We get like our flashes and glimpses, and it's like they just didn't film anything at an actual monastery or even make a set to look like a monastery. So I'm starting to think all our shots are going to be mountain shots, and that's it, because I think that's what we're going to have. So it's a little weird now going through and not just getting that full flashback episode. I feel like we kind of need it at this point because no other characters talked about their past as much as he has, so that's why it bugs me so much, because everybody else is like, yeah, it'll be referenced like maybe every 3 or 4 episodes what their past was like, and then you get a flashback episode. And then, it's the same with Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. He literally had a full flashback episode and everything. And with Danny, from episode 1, it was about flashbacks, and we get these little glimpses, or he'll talk about how he did this or how he did that, and we just haven't seen anything. We've seen, I guess, 4 characters. We saw his master, who's played by Master Splinter. We've seen his buddy now, Davos, and we saw the 2 monks that saved him when he first crashed. And those are the only 4 people we've seen out of the 15 years that he, spent there. We didn't see the monastery or anything like that. We see him sitting on a mountain when he's training and stuff like that. And I know there's a shot coming up where he's in his actual outfit. So I do believe there is a scene that takes place in the monastery. I don't know if that's going to be a full flashback episode or what, but I'm going into like the last 3 or 4 episodes, so I'm like, I don't really think that's going to be the case. Going into the last 3 episodes having a full flashback thing, but it's weird. I didn't think it would bug me because I actually thought it was cool at first, but then it's just like he's always talking about it and we never see it, and that's show not tell, that sort of deal. So it starts to get to that point where so much of the dialogue I can look back on and be like, that's where he talked about how he learned this, or this is where he talked about how he learned this move, and we don't ever see any of this stuff. Sometimes when he talks about like the comedic moments, like how in the beginning when he talked about his best friend hanging out with Davos and things like that, I was like, that's fine. That's not even the training part. That's just him being a kid when he was there. I was like, that we don't need to actually see. I'm fine with this, just hearing those stories of him and his old friend. But when it gets to all the extra stuff about this is how I trained, or these are the hardships I went through, and it's been like that the whole season and we still haven't seen any of that stuff, it starts to get to me like, alright, at some point it really is just, you gotta just show me something. Like, just do a flashback so I can just see him go through it without hearing him tell somebody how he went through it, because it got to me after a while. It was like, man, he's just talked about it so much, and we've literally seen like I said, we literally have not even seen the monastery itself. It's just glimpses of some people, and we've seen more of the crash than we've seen of anything else. Honestly, we've seen more of him on that crash site or walking around the crash site than we have seen of any other part of his backstory, and that's literally the beginning of that 15-year journey, and that's what we've seen. So it's starting to get to me at this point, and I'm assuming it'll just keep happening. I doubt, like I said, going into the last 3 episodes, I doubt I'm going to get a full flashback episode, and I kind of don't want that in the last 3 episodes, but I don't know. It might happen. It's really hard to say. Like, just the pacing is kind of weird for this show, so we'll see where it happens. But I do want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about the reveal officially that Colleen is a part of the Hand. It's not like some other organization. It's supposedly the official Hand. Like I said, she was like, Madame Gao is her own rogue thing, but I'm like, I feel like you guys are too, because I've seen Nobu in Daredevil, and that's totally different than what these kids are doing. And it's just, they're just raising people to be in the Hand like it's a school. So I'm like, I kind of feel like they're doing their own rogue thing too, technically. I don't think the Hand is as nice as Bakudo is, where he's like, oh, it's cool, you're teaching kids, like it's just a big martial arts monastery. That's the Hand is much harsher than that, from what I've seen, just in this version that they've made of the cinematic, Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, I'm like, I feel like they're their own thing too, but I want to know what you guys thought about that. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about the episode in general, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.